Good morning, everyone. I am very excited to be here today to introduce Kent Hance to the stage. My name is Missy Currier, and I was born and raised in Carlsbad, and I have the privilege now to work in Lee County, so I'm a dual citizen. But with that in mind, I'm very proud to have Kent Hance here. He's the man, the myth, the legend. He's all the things that you might imagine he could be and should be. He's been a wonderful friend to oil and gas, and he's a wonderful friend to southeastern New Mexico. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage. He's the former Chancellor of Texas Tech, former congressman, former railroad commissioner, former. He's a wonderful man, and I'm glad he's my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Missy, and I appreciate being here. This is always, and to the mayors, a special thank you for having this event. And I would be amiss if I didn't ask you just to have a moment of silence for my dear friend, old Boone Pickens. Boone we served on a board together in 1972, and he taught me a lot. And we talked on a regular basis, and the last year had kind of been tough on him. But he never gave up on anything. And one time I was in Washington and he was going to see Harry Reid. I said, Boone, what are you doing going to see? He said, I'm working on him. I saw him later that afternoon. I said, how'd you do? He said, I didn't do real good. So he always had his sense of humor. He was a big Oklahoma State fan. And when he was assured in his mind that Oklahoma State could beat Texas Tech, he always invited me to sit with him. If he thought that they weren't going to beat us, he would not, he wouldn't invite me. And but he was a big Oklahoma State fan, and he gave money back, and I always appreciate people who do that. When I was first chancellor at Texas Tech, I'd been there about a week, and a professor came to see me. He said, Chancellor, I'm not getting paid enough. And I said, well, I understand that. He said, I'm not, my office is too small. I understand that. He said, my parking space is too bad. It's too far away. My computer's out there. He just had everything imaginable wrong. And I said, Dr. Patterson, I wish I had 100 just like you. He said, why? I said, because right now I've got 2,000 just like you. And something I learned a long time ago in politics, you stand up and shake out, and they're sitting there, and you just stand up and shake hands with them and pull them out of that chair. And I got him going along, and I told my assistant, I said, in the future, he needs to see the provost. I didn't know exactly what a provost did, but I knew that it sounded more important to me for him. And so we got him moving in that direction. Representing the congressional district, I represented Midland, Odessa, Lubbock. I came right up to the line, Andrews, Seminole, Denver City. One time I was the parade marshal in Denver City, and I got over there and I said, where's my convertible? I thought as parade marshal, they put me in a convertible. They said, we don't have a convertible. And I said, well, what'll I be in a float or what? And they said, no, just pull your car in behind the band from Denver City and in front of the band from Plains, which is not all bad because lots of times in West Texas, if you've been voting improperly in their mind, they'll put you behind the horses, make you walk. And when that happens, it's hard to establish good eye contact with the crowd. And they're always helping you hoping that you step in the wrong direction. And so I was carrying Reagan's tax cut in 1981, and it was exciting. I'd been on Today and Meet the Press and all those shows, and I came to Denver City, and they had me drive my own car in the parade, and so it brought me back to reality, and real fast. One quick story I'll tell you, we had 78 Democrats voted for Reagan's tax cut, and you just couldn't get that in this day and time. You don't have much bipartisan work. And we had a meeting at the White House, and I brought in 7 congressmen that were undecided. And President Reagan, he was smooth. Press to act like he didn't know what he was doing. He was the best. He knew how to cut a deal. If you took him and Bob Dole and Russell Long, they could cut any deal under any conditions. And so he greeted us when we came in, and I had 7 congressmen with me, and he offered us jelly beans. I hate jelly beans. They stick to your teeth and everything, but I got some, and act like, and say, here, get some more, Congressman. No, and all that, so I want to save it. Oh, we got plenty. But John Breaux from Louisiana and Billy Tozan were 2 undecided votes, and the president looked at them and he said, gentlemen, he said, I got 72% of the vote in Louisiana. You need to be for me. And Breaux said, well, we can't be for you as long as you don't keep those tariffs on sugar coming in, because it'll kill our sugar beet farmers. And Reagan knew how to cut a deal. Immediately he said, I won't do away with the tariff. I'll save you sugar cane. What was the sugar cane bill? Was a fight between the sugar cane farmers and the soft drink people. The tax cut affected everybody in the nation. And he said, well, I'll do that. And so he picked up 2 votes there, and we wound up, out of the 7, 6 of them agreed to vote with us. And so we had a press conference, went out, and I said we picked up 6 more votes, and I introduced the people that were for us. And Sam Donaldson, who has some connection with New Mexico, Sam just meaner than a junkyard dog. If he was here, I'd say the same thing. And so Sam, he asked Breaux, he said, you're voting for this Republican tax bill. Why are you doing that? And I figured Breaux would say, it's good policy. People need a tax cut. But he said, the president said that he would not lift the tariffs on sugar coming in from out of the country to save my sugar farmers. And Sam Donaldson said, did you sell your vote? And Breaux said, no, I just rented it out for a little while. And to tell you how much I did not know about New Mexico politics, or Oklahoma politics, or Louisiana politics, and Louisiana's different than New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, I thought that would ruin his career. He went on and got elected to the U.S. Senate and served 3 terms in the U.S. Senate. So I had an opportunity to deal with him and pass some legislation, and we were able to eventually do away with the windfall profits tax, which was the first reverse tariff in the history of mankind, that you taxed your production and exempted the production coming in. It was a bad idea, and it took a while to get rid of it. When I was flying in today from Austin, I looked down. The investment in this state and in the Permian Basin by the energy industry is overwhelming. You just look down, the billions of dollars that have been invested. And you look at the rate of return in New Mexico, almost a third of your general revenue is coming from oil and gas. And that you look at the amount of money that was coming in between 2017 and 2018 was a 26% increase in the oil and gas revenue that the state had, and that's big. I want to talk a little about oil pricing. There are so many issues, the methane issue. One thing I think about methane, in 1990 to 2017, over 27 years, the amount of natural gas increased by 50%, but the amount of methane emissions went down by 14%. We're making progress. People talk about the Paris Accord, and we withdrew, and I agree with that. I wish we had a Washington Accord, and we could invite all the countries in and say, we just want you to live up to our standards. And it would be something that would be beneficial. It'd be beneficial to the entire world. You look at our air and you look at our rivers and everything, they're cleaner today than they've been in 100 years. And so we've made a lot of progress. And when I was chairman of the Railroad Commission, I always told our employees, your job is to work with the industry, make sure they follow the rules and regulations, and help them move forward in producing oil and gas. That's your job. Work with them. Do not think that they're the enemy. One of the biggest problems I found in higher education and also in government is the problem that you get into with the process. Some people get overwhelmed with the process. They're more concerned about the process than the results. If you're going to drill a well, you've tried about, what I'm going to drill, how am I going to raise the money and everything like that. And then you make sure that you follow all the rules. But in so many instances in government and in education, the process is more important than the result. And the result is what you want. What are we trying to do here? What can we accomplish? And so that is very important. But on pricing, the world economy, the other night, this tells you about watching TV. I watched CNN in the world, the economy slowing down. It's going to be a great recession and depression and everything. And I just got depressed, so I switched over to Fox, and there's nothing wrong. Everything's rosy. Somewhere in between, and certainly in between is not MSNBC. So you have to look and find your information in this day and time and try to see what everybody's saying and try to sort it out. But the economy in this country is great. I travel all over the country, and it's in great shape. Phil Gramm, you remember Phil Gramm, U.S. Senator from Texas, and a great friend of mine, and we were talking. He said, Trump ought to be at about 70% in the polls. And I said he would be if he didn't have Twitter. And and he laughed, and he said, yeah. He said, we were talking to a guy, and he said, I don't like what he tweets, but I like what he does. And so, it'll be a competitive race next year. But one of the things I think is important is that on the other side, every candidate either wants to have a moratorium or stop drilling on federal lands. Well, that's just crazy. It makes no sense. And, you look at some of the things that are going to be coming up. If you can strangle the economy in the name of something that may not be correct. I'm for a good, clean environment. But I do not want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got to have common sense. But coming back on the pricing, that if you look, the International Monetary Fund, they made their projection for 2020 at $50 on West Texas Intermediate. If the U.S. Energy Information Administration said $56.50. Now, something I've always said in the industry, you can go out and make a prediction, and there's at least a 100% chance you're going to be wrong. Something can happen in the Middle East, and oil can go to $75 in a short period of time. I know what is happening with oil. I saw Ben Shepherd a while ago at PBPA, and I said, it made me think. I went to Odessa one time when oil was like $140, and the Holiday Inn Select was $429. I said, how much? And they said $429. I said, the last guy that robbed me had a gun instead of a hotel room. And then after prices drop, it went down some. But I can usually go somewhere and find out, what the local economy is pretty fast. But when at Texas Tech, when the oil got to that point, I thought to myself, if we're going to have a new petroleum engineering building, I better get it now. And Bob Hurd, one of our alums from Tyler, gave us $15 million. And we've named the petroleum engineering is named after him. His next door neighbor in Tyler did the same thing with OU. And I told David Bourne, the president of OU, I needed some kind of referral on that because it was my guy that, donated first. But on the world economy, I don't know what will happen, but things are going well. You look at supply and demand. It's been the last month, there was about 900,000 more production than demand. And so it's kind of, put a quietness on the price in the $50 range, and hopefully it'll get back to 60. OPEC in 1986, I became chairman of the Texas Railroad Commission, and price of oil went to $9. That's not a fun time to be chairman of the Railroad Commission. And so I was trying to think what I could do, and so I went to Vienna to the OPEC meeting. And they were glad to have me, let me sit up near the front. And one of the guys told me, he said, if the guy from Libya gets up and goes to the restroom, go with him. Yeah, why? And he said, about 15 years ago, he got up and went to the restroom, and Carlos, the international terrorist, came in and kidnapped the rest of us. Okay. I kept my eye on that guy. He got up, and I saw him getting up. I didn't know if he was going to the restroom or where. I was going with him. And the chairman must admit, because Chairman Gavin said, we'll take a short break. Everybody stayed close to the guy. The OPEC, they had, they looked at what the Texas Railroad Commission was doing from the 30s and up until the 60s, and they were the swing producer. The last barrel of oil is going to set the price. It's theoretical. But if you think there's not enough out there, you're going to bid it up. So you think you don't want to be caught with that last barrel. And so they were able to get prices increased. They don't always have cooperation. Iraq and Iran were at war for many years, and they sat next to each other at the OPEC meetings. The one thing they do understand is the pricing. Saudi Arabia could come out and produce more and hurt prices, but they have such demands internally that they have demands domestically for their people. They've given so much money, and they've spent so much money government-wise. So I kind of doubt that they could do that for a long period of time. If they roll back their cuts, that will certainly have an impact on us, and I hope that does not happen. One other thing I wanted to mention, the Endangered Species Act. It looks like the administration is going to make it easier to remove species, and that you have to take into consideration economic impact. And I was telling Ben a while ago, what was it? Was it the desert lizard? Sand dune lizard. Pardon me, desert lizard. I apologize. Offend one lizard over another one. I don't know what. Golly, they'll never forgive me on that. But I told Ben, I said, I've got a witness and an expert in biology that you need to talk to. And he was good. And he said, well, has he studied mammals? And I said, yeah, that's what his PhD's in. He's in biology. And the UN hired him, and he had been to Chernobyl 42 times. I said, he knows something about damage. And he was a great witness for y'all, and did you a good job. And I was glad that we could help in that regard. NEPA, one of the things on NEPA that you don't want to get into the state situation with feds. You look at a year to get a NEPA done. You want to be able to get it done faster, and the state can do that in 2 to 4 weeks. Your administration delays. Some people in government think that if they don't make a decision, they can't make a mistake. Well, that is a mistake, and that you have to have certainty. And if you have certainty, you can pretty well work around it. I had the opportunity to be here, and I don't know, was Governor Martinez, is she here? There she is. Good to see you, and she's my friend, and was always my friend, and we didn't always agree, but we came close to about 98% of the time, and also Governor Luan Grisham, is she here? She didn't make it? Okay. Oh, she's in the back room. She didn't want to hear me speak. Well, I tell her I'm hurt that she didn't want to hear me speak. No, I was going to tell her that one of my former employees, Jody Arrington, he was my chief of staff at Tech, and he's now the U.S. Congressman and represents Lubbock and Abilene, and he served with the governor in Washington, and said that she was one of the Democrats that he could work with. So I wanted to pass that along to her, that he sends his best. To the producers, it's not always easy what you're doing. You take a lot of risk, and there's a lot of reward sometimes, but sometimes there's absolutely no reward. But if it were not for oil and gas and what we do in Texas and New Mexico, state government in Texas, state government in New Mexico would have difficult times. I'm always saying to people in Austin, if y'all want to complain enough, just don't take any money. But they don't think that's as funny as I do. Once when I was a young state senator, I was making a speech, and I said, Texas is the only state that has, when they came into the Union, they had the right to split up into 5 states, up to 5. And I said this, I said that if you take Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Carlsbad, Artesia, Roswell, Clovis, and Hobbs, that'd be a great state. You would have, there'd be a lot of people groaning about that, but that would be a great state. You not only wouldn't have an income tax, you wouldn't even have a sales tax. Things would be rolling. I told Ted Cruz had a close race. Beto gave him a close race, and he won by 215,000 votes. If you take those 7 cities I mentioned, Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, his majority there was 255,000. So if it hadn't been for those 7, I said, just don't forget those, the magnificent 7's what I called them. Don't forget those, because it made the difference, because in those 7, the worst he did in any city was 68%, and the best he did was 82%. And so, you run up big numbers on the other side, and I'm just telling you that's just practical politics that you look at. You certainly got to play to your base, and that was the base. But the base of West Texas and eastern New Mexico is sound, and the Permian Basin. You look at what's happening in the Permian Basin over the last 10 years, it's phenomenal. It's just breathtaking to see what's happening. Anytime you're in Midland and you sit through a light 3 times before you get to go green, there's something going on. And I'm in the apartment business, and I built 4 in Midland, Odessa, and 1 in Hobbs in 2006. A lot of people said, I don't think I'd do that. And I'd like to tell you I could foresee what was going to happen, but I thought they'd be okay. Had I known what I know now, I wouldn't have built 4 in Midland, Odessa. I built 40. It's just been a boom, and it's been good for the state, and it's been good for the nation. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's good to see a lot of my friends that dealt with for many years, and that helped me in campaigns, and that I just worked with on other items. And oil and gas industry does a great thing. Mayor, thank you for having this conference. And in Congress, I always think I don't know how many of you would remember, but Ralph Hall was a Congressman Rockwall. Julie, you remember Ralph? He was a colorful guy, and he always had the right answer. And we got off of a plane one time in Dallas, and we're walking along, and a guy said, Congressman. And we both turned around. I didn't know the guy. He did. And he said, call him by his name. And he said, I hadn't seen you in 10 years. The guy said, 12. I moved to California 12 years ago. And he said, well, that's good you're coming back. And the guy said he has moved back to Rockwall, and they were talking. And Ralph all of a sudden said, God, I forgot to ask you, how's that beautiful, charming, vivacious, cute, intelligent little wife? And this guy said, I divorced her last month. And Ralph said, you better off without her, and slapped him on the back. He didn't miss a lick. I'm sitting over there biting my tongue. I thought, how can I get, I was doing all I could to keep from laughing. And we left, and he said, well, you got to make them feel better. So, I hope I have not insulted anybody, and I've made you feel better. Thank you for all you do.